Now, it was the voice of business that helped keep Britain in the bloc back in 1975, the last time a European referendum was held. Well, the Prime Minister, David Cameron, is hoping that the business community will rally once more this time round and back his bid to keep Britain in a reformed EU. But the landscape is very different this time around. The business community is divided, support for Brexit is rising, and confidence in the Prime Minister's ability to negotiate a good deal is slipping. Today's Focus Report comes from Hervé Amoric, Lucy Fielder and Enda Oluni.
This car may seem ordinary, but it is the first Volvo equipped with an energy recovery system initially designed for Formula One racing, here at the home of the British Grand Prix.
The good thing with that is that we can both save fuel, but we can also improve the performance of the vehicle.
The British company which invented the system is about to grow. For CEO Adam Robson, it is the wrong time for Britain to consider leaving the EU.
There are only downsides to leaving Europe. For us as a business, we could lose contact with partners, we could lose contact with research funding opportunities, and we could lose customers who begin to move out of Britain and think less naturally of partnering with a British company. So I think all of that is negative.
At Warwick University, students show off their racing prototype to Lord Bhattacharya, a key advisor to Jaguar and Land Rover. He wants Britain to stay in the EU.
Why do investors come here? For Europe. They want Europe as a market. And if Europe disappears, there'll be a huge impact. The inward investment comes down and manufacturing will go much below 10%, and we won't have any jobs.
This veteran industrialist feels that the last thing the economy needs is more uncertainty.
Most people are quite emotional. Okay. Oh, well, they think of the empire days, they think of the colonies, they still think that they can do this on their own. Those days have gone. You know, combined with Europe, we are more powerful than we are on our own.
Jonathan Duck is the head of a large flooring company exporting to Europe and to America. Before making up his mind on the Brexit referendum, he wants to see the details of the deal David Cameron gets from his EU counterparts.
If we can't get the right terms, then we have to be realistic and say the economic consequences would not be quite as catastrophic as everyone makes out. And certainly, if you're a manufacturing exporter like we are, you would actually probably benefit because your currency would be weaker. The one thing that I would not want is trade tariffs for my exports into mainland Europe.
This former trade minister used to lead the Confederation of British Industry. He is not worried about the economic consequences of a Brexit.
If Britain was to leave the European Union, there would be a free trade agreement in place virtually the next day. Germany sell 1 million cars a year in Britain. The Brits drink so much French champagne. You know, there's so many things where it's in Europe's interest to have a free trade, tariff-free trading relationship between and outside the EU, Britain, and the European Union. So I would say that the impact on jobs in Britain would be virtually nil.
However, this economist does not believe that Britain would automatically get free access to the EU market.
Over time, I think it's fairly clear that those trade costs would tend to go up. And all the evidence is that countries like, say, the United States, which export to the EU, face quite big trade barriers.
British small arms started making muskets in the 17th century. Now it makes machine tools like this one. Steve Britton is a former president of the Greater Birmingham Chamber of Commerce.
What business wants is to renegotiate certain parts and stay in. That's what it wants. That's not necessarily the view of the general masses. One of the big issues that they have is immigration. And therefore, the vote may be skewed away from what business thinks, but it's an important thing to realise.
A referendum is a somewhat hazardous procedure, especially at this point in time where migration has become such a headline issue.
Immigration, a key campaign issue for the UK Independence Party, UKIP, who have close links with the Leave.eu campaign. Property tycoon Richard Tice believes the City of London would prosper outside the EU.
There are some very big businesses, the big investment banks, American investment banks like Goldman Sachs, they're saying that we must stay in. It's also Goldman Sachs who said Britain must join the euro, otherwise, then the City of London would disappear to Frankfurt and our car manufacturers would disappear to continental Europe. They were completely and utterly wrong then, and they're still wrong today. They've got their own vested interests.
There is no referendum date just yet, but the campaign to leave or stay in the EU are getting underway.